In the late 19th century, when America was connected not by asphalt roads, but by iron rails and dusty trails, the world felt incredibly small for those living in remote villages and isolated farms. For this population, squeezed between the limited selection and high prices of local shops, the watch trade that Richard Sears accidentally started at a railway station in 1886 was not just a business. It was the birth of a new economic model. Joined by the watchmaker precision of Alva Roebuck, this venture soon became an empire under the name Sears, Roebuck and Company, reaching every corner of America. The company's famous catalogs were the only window to the world for families in rural areas. People flipped through these thick booklets, which they called the Consumer's Bible, ordering everything from watches and sewing machines to children's toys and even ready-made kit houses sent by mail. The Sears name was a reliable friend to the American middle class, a symbol of honesty and accessibility. Seeing that people's shopping habits were changing with the spread of automobiles in the 1920s, the company carried out another revolution by transitioning from the catalog business to physical stores. Sears managed the post-World War II economic boom better than anyone else. Large stores opening in newly emerging suburbs became an integral part of American homes, with Kenmore refrigerators and Craftsman tools. In the early 1970s, the erection of the Sears Tower in the center of Chicago, the tallest building in the world, stood as a physical manifestation of this empire's unshakable power, challenging the sky. Everyone thought this giant fortress would remain at the peak of the retail world forever, but it is difficult to feel the coldness of the wind when you are at the very top. The first cracks within the empire began to appear in the shadow of that very same magnificent tower. The company's leadership had become such a massive and bureaucratic apparatus that they lost sight of the dust on the store shelves and the changing tastes of the customer. In the late 1970s, when competitors like Walmart and Target entered the market with more efficient supply chains and low-price strategies, Sears became a prisoner of its past successes. Instead of competing, they began investing in fields completely outside of retail. They fell into the dream of creating a financial supermarket by acquiring the Allstate Insurance Company, Coldwell Banker Real Estate Agency, and Dean Witter Investment Bank. Management believed that a customer would come to Sears to buy a hammer and manage their stocks at the same time. This strategic distraction led to the stores themselves being neglected, aging, and losing their appeal. The stores were no longer for modern youth, but tired spaces visited only for memories left over from their parents' generation. In the 1990s, when the emergence of Amazon and the first waves of e-commerce began, Sears held a treasure that no other company in the world possessed: a massive catalog archive containing the shopping data of millions of families and a logistics network distributed across the country. However, management did not take this digital revolution seriously. They considered the internet a passing interest and the catalog an unshakable pillar. Thus, the chain of decisions that would destroy their own future began to accelerate. The beginning of the end for Sears was formalized in 2005 with the appearance of hedge fund manager Eddie Lampert. Lampert was a corporate engineer who lived by numbers and financial models, with no experience in retail. Although he claimed he would lead the retail world again by merging Sears with Kmart, his plan was not to revitalize the stores, but to squeeze maximum profit out of the company's assets and real estate. The management model he implemented went down as one of the strangest experiments in business history. Lampert divided the company into more than 30 independent units and forced each to compete as a separate company. Departments fought each other for resources and budgets, and one unit's customer data was hidden from another. This internal fragmentation completely poisoned the corporate culture. Employees focused on internal intrigues instead of serving the customer. Lampert viewed the money spent on the physical condition and repair of the stores as a loss. As a result, Sears stores began to resemble ruins. Dim lights, torn floors, and empty shelves pushed customers further away every day. The company's most valuable assets, brands like Craftsman, Die Hard, and Kenmore formed over decades, were sold off one by one to pay short-term debts. It was as if a person, in order not to freeze in the cold, burned the window frames of the house they lived in. Though each burning piece gave momentary heat, in the end, the house was left completely defenseless and collapsed. By the mid-2000s, Sears was just a patient on death row, losing billions of dollars every year with debts increasing exponentially. No financial manipulation could save this giant. When Sears officially declared bankruptcy under Chapter 11 in October 2018, it was not just the end of a company, but the end of an era in American economic history. Once the country's largest employer and the backbone of the economy, Sears now consisted only of rusted logos in emptied shopping malls. Its place was taken by the relentless speed of online sales and a new generation of technological giants following the customer at every step. The fall of Sears is a bitter but lesson-filled epilogue for the business world. This story teaches us that innovation is not just technology, but the ability to constantly renew the path to the customer's heart. If a company replaces the sincere and reliable bond it has built with the consumer with only numbers and Excel spreadsheets, its collapse is only a matter of time. Financial engineering can never take the place of creating real value and understanding human needs. This collapse is also the most obvious and devastating example of the innovator's dilemma. Sears became such a victim of its own success that it did not find the courage to sacrifice its past to build the future. Being the king of the catalog era did not give them the courage needed not to be the beggar of the digital age. The dusty shelves in their stores were actually a mirror of the dust-covered thoughts of the management. They were actually bankrupt the day they stopped listening to the customer. The official documents in 2018 were merely the signature on a verdict given years ago. Today, the void left by Sears is a warning beacon for every entrepreneur and manager. The biggest enemy is not the competitor outside, but the arrogance and fear of change within. If an empire forgets its roots, its customer, its height will only serve the loudness of the sound it makes when it falls. The history of Sears shows that retail is not just the art of buying and selling goods, but the art of building a community and finding solutions to needs. When Richard Sears and Alva Roebuck sold watches to farm owners back then, they were not selling them time, but discipline and modernity. They brought hope and development to every home with their catalogs. However, later generations lost this philosophy and turned the company into just a pile of numbers. Management based on ruthless competition, employees becoming enemies to each other, and neglect of the stores was enough for a brand's suicide. The company's bankruptcy also showed that the value of a brand is measured not by the price of the real estate on its balance sheet, but by the customer's loyalty to that brand. Once customer loyalty is lost, no discount campaign or shiny advertisement can bring it back. The empty buildings of Sears stand today in many cities across America as if they were unprotected museum exhibits of the modern economy. They whisper to us that any giant that cannot catch the spirit of the times, no matter how strong it is, will surely be buried in the dusty pages of history. These lessons are applicable to everyone, from today's startups to global corporations. Innovation is a continuous process, And it is not just the courage to do something new, but also the courage to give up the old. Sears could not show this courage and remained under the magnificent past it had built. Now, we are left with only the memory of those colorful catalogs and the store corridors that were once the capital of world retail but are now shrouded in silence. History does not repeat itself, but it certainly whispers its lessons in our ears. The whisper of Sears is very clear. Don't forget the customer, or the world will forget you. In the company's final days, the sight of employees still waiting for customers among empty shelves showed how strong that human side of retail was, but the extinguishing of the management fire above had made these efforts meaningless. The collapse of Sears is also a management lesson in the heavy consequences of prioritizing financial profit over strategic vision. The longevity of an institution is tested not only by its ability to generate profit, but also by the value it provides to society and the individual. Sears failed this test, thereby causing an era to close. Now its name lives on only as a what not to do example in retail textbooks. This dramatic story will continue to remind future generations that commerce is not just a collection of numbers, but also a culture and an ability to adapt.